Hey everyone, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and I am your host, Andrew Davis. And before I introduce my guest, I would like to remind everyone you need to support and financially support what you love, whether it is this show, my guest's comic, or corporate media. I personally do not care as long as you're supporting something that you love and you want to see more of, because without your support, it doesn't get made. But enough about that, as I have with me comic creator Ed Davis. Back again. I think this is your third or your fourth time at this point. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
think so.
It's crazy. It's crazy. 3 years in, and you've been on a bunch of times. But obviously, I like having you on. Your book's really perfect for Halloween and October. And so, yeah. So, how are you?
Doing great. How are you today?
It's a good day. It's a good day. I got no complaints. But I do want to get into your Kickstarter because I think it is a big deal, your Kickstarter, and in particular this one, because you are doing issue 7 in the Immortal era, and you're also doing the trade paperback, which is the first 6 collected into a book. And I think it is a big deal when somebody starts doing a trade paperback or a graphic novel, and sometimes those words are interchangeable.
Yeah.
And I think it's a big deal when you have an ongoing series. And so before we get into all that and touch upon that, I do want to catch everybody up, though, on what is the Immortal Era for those who are hearing about it for the first time. This is the opportunity to catch up on the whole series in one shot, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, so Immortal Era is a story. It takes place 200 years in the future in a world without death. So everyone in this world is immortal, but no one has powers or abilities. They still age, they still get sick. And it focuses on a group of 5 underground dwellers who are out on a quest to find a way to restore the natural life cycle back into the world and save humanity by killing them. And what I'm trying to do with the series is build a deep mythology. So it's not just, you can read it on the surface level, but I try to make sure that I'm connecting little pieces. And just yesterday, I was finishing up issue 10 and I had to pull out issue 1 so I could make sure that the connective threads still work, because I constantly try to, put hidden pieces in there where a small panel that might seem insignificant has huge bearing later on down the line.
Yeah, and let's even talk about this a little bit, because obviously, this group of people wanted to kill Death, and Death sometimes randomly appears, and that's when you get the opportunity to kill Death, and then they scatter Death all over the world, I think. And then obviously there was some people who really enjoyed, and I have a feeling it was somewhat of an orchestrated hit, because there's money to be made, there's power to be gained, there is a societal shift, there's real advantages to Death not existing, and then at the same time there's also real disadvantages. And it's really created a very interesting circumstance where there is a class division that has occurred, where there's the upper society, there's the wealthy, there's people trying to become the wealthy, and then there's the slums. And so it's very interesting because, just on an economic level, you could look at it that way on what immortality actually causes. And so there's a lot of moving parts. And obviously we've gone through, I think, 3 interviews going through all of this. So, I don't want to dive too much into it, but there is stuff dealing with that. And obviously people can't die, but that doesn't mean you can't get messed up. That doesn't mean that you can't be, I guess, dealt with, is the next way to put it.
They'll threaten you with your cognitive function, because they take out the brain, the body becomes useless, most likely food, because cannibalism is a huge thing in this world because resources are so thin. People will do whatever they can. You're not going to die of starvation, but who wants to live with it? So that's something that's in this world. They can get rid of you, but you're never going to actually die.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And then obviously we have the group of 5 who sort of are going up to the surface, and not to spoil anything, but it really becomes a group, I think, of 3 at a certain point. And obviously we get Ari, Miguel, and Kimberly. And they deal with at least finding the first piece of Death in a very interesting way. Not to spoil anything. But we are going into issue 7 here. So if that doesn't give you a clue on what's going on. But again, that's a fascinating ending. And let's just say there's sacrifices and consequences for their actions at the end of issue 6.
Yeah. And that's kind of where issue 7 will pick up right after that, kind of the aftermath. And we need to, what I try to do is issue 6 was kind of that big action issue. A lot happened. Now issue 7 quiets down a lot because we need to see the actual real world consequences of everything that just happened. There was a war in the village underground. Many people had to sacrifice themselves in that. And then above on the surface, there were things that were going on that led to, repercussions that are going to be seen through the whole series. So 7 is one of those quiet issues where I slow everything down and we just kind of deal with the aftermath of the events of issue 6.
Yeah, let's actually talk about it. Issue 7, because right now we just had a major thing, and I'm going to give an analogy. It's almost like, you have WrestleMania that happens on Sunday night.
Yeah.
That Monday Night Raw is the consequence episode of what just happened and what new storylines are we shooting out. What are we going to be setting up for the next 6 months, give or take? And okay, the crowd is still hot and the stove is still burning, but we also now need to pivot and redirect, I guess, the flames.
Yes,
and so
exactly.
What is this like? Because I view issue 7 as a jumping on point where you don't need to know too much about what happened in the first 6 issues. You need to know a little bit about what happened, but I think you get pretty caught up pretty quickly in the first few pages. It's not that difficult. And then now we are sort of out in the bigger world in a lot of ways. And it's almost a gigantic reset because Ari, Miguel, and Kimberly are not going home yet. to say it this way, like I try to be as pleasantly nice as humanly possible because they have a mission to go. And so what is this like? Because it really sets up, I feel, a brand new start.
Yeah, it actually, Ari, Kimberly, and Miguel will come home, but it will be a very short stay. They're basically going in to check on what happened while they were gone, and then they're catapulted right back out. So their stay at home, and pardon my voice, I've been battling a cold all day. Their stay at home is just enough to see what's been going on and then get right back out with the mission at hand. Because like you said, they hunted down that first piece of death. There are more to go. And that's what's going to expand this world and this universe is we've seen one part of a city, but we're going to see huger parts of the whole world that have never been touched on. And those are the places they're going to have to go to complete this mission.
Yeah, to even go further into that, because this is one of the things that I think is super interesting is that you wrote 6 issues and you published 6 issues, and it's a pretty dense world in those 6 issues compared to now that you're playing with the rest of the world. So it was almost like you took a microscope and we had a very dense world where we see what the slums look like. We see what a metropolis type city looks like. We see the division between wealth class, and now death is scattered all over the world. And we're going to be seeing how other parts of the world handle this. Are they as messed up as where Ari, Miguel, and Kimberly sort of grew up both on and below the surface? And do they handle things the same way? Are they more draconian? Are they less draconian? And it opens up a brand new box. Not to mention that there's other questions too, is that how connected is this city with everything else in the world? And so it's super interesting because this is a brand new starting line. We're right at the starting line with this. And that's what's so interesting is that what is that like? Because I think that's something that a lot of writers want. It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because it can go one of two ways. And it only goes one of two ways. It goes really well or really bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the new jumping on point, I mean, it's difficult because, like you said, we've looked in this small world. They don't know any before, issue 1 started. They didn't know anything beyond this subway that they lived in. The world was a very small place. And now as it gets bigger, we'll see what's happened and how societies have kind of developed around these pieces of death. So they affect everyone who's around them in different ways. And we'll see the ways that they're affected by those pieces of death. Issues 7 through 12 still kind of stay in that basic city zone, but just farther out in places we haven't touched yet. And then actually issue 9, we see the first of the world far beyond the cities. And then it will be the next story arc that things go completely wild and haywire. So that's when the world I kind of blow up the whole world that they're in and say, all right, now let's see if we can pick up these pieces, literally and figuratively.
Because yeah, no, it's super interesting, and obviously, if you're reading, you're now getting very much what I call cultural shock, because we don't know anything beyond the fact that there's division between the classes, and that obviously you have a doctor who wants this, and you have a government that really thoroughly enjoys, where it's at because they have power.
Yeah.
Death, and now that's being challenged, and even just what Kimberly, Ari, and Miguel are going to have to face, and then even just discovering new allies, discovering new enemies. I'm pretty sure that as you go further out, there are people who want death and there's people who don't. There's probably societies as they head further into the world that some of these societies don't want their piece of death to be taken because they worship it, and they worship it like a god or a messiah, and others are happily to get it out of their society. And so now it's just there's just so much in play, and it's so interesting because you're running a long-term series in that fashion. So what is this like to sort of, I guess, load the chamber, for lack of a better word?
I mean, I have fun with that because I kind of developed when I wrote issue 2, there's one page where we see Rob scattering the pieces of death around. And I had to write basically every single one of those places. What is it? What has happened because of that piece of death being there for 200 years? How has it changed whatever world it was placed in? The city has kind of built around the pieces of death that were hid there and shoved down people. And we see kind of who's been pulling the strings all along as the series progresses. But each place that the piece of death has been placed is dramatically different than the ones around it. So when I was writing issue 2, I basically drew in my poorly drawn way the map of where everything was and what has been the effect of that piece being there for 200 years. And then, eventually what's going to happen when Ari, Miguel, and Kimberly get to this place. How is it going to, how are they going to deal with this world that's completely a mess because it's been affected by the piece of death? We've seen how they're handling the city and things are terrible there. There's already consequences that are coming out because of their first piece of the mission. And there's a lot more to go.
Yeah, and then obviously, I mean, I don't want to dive too much further into issue 7 because I don't think much is even on the Kickstarter about issue 7 beyond the fact that this is the consequences. And there can't be, because if we know what happens in issue 7, it kind of ruins what happened in issue 6 to some degree. And so, but obviously, this is the aftermath as well as their next step and more or less getting out of the city, finding, certain things and a variety of other stuff. But I don't want to push too much further into that because I do want to talk about the other side of this, which I think is just as interesting, if not more so. And that is you teamed up issue 7 with the trade paperback for the first 6 issues. And so what prompted that? Because that's very tricky, I feel, in indie comics when you do double issues because it's more money. I mean, I don't think that that's a secret. Stop me at any point, by the way, if I'm revealing any trade secrets here.
No.
It's more money to do it because you just have more expenditures. It also requires, I don't know if it requires more people, but sometimes it does, or it requires another cover. Also sometimes it requires more patience Also, it is a little bit more risky, as well as the question becomes that if you did the trade paperback by itself, you might have done 3 grand on the trade paperback, and you might have done 4,000 on issue 7 versus doing 6,500. I'm just making up numbers. I don't know where you're going to end up, but I
Yeah.
think that sometimes, that happens. And so, what prompted all of this? And then the other thing, just to play devil's advocate, is that some people do double issues or a trade paperback with an issue because it's just time, because they want to get more content out, and time is money. So what prompted all of this? Because it is tricky, and especially when you look at it from a business standpoint.
Yeah, I think what prompted it, actually, if you go back to our first interview, we were talking about the trade, and you said your readers, they don't want to wait around for a full campaign of a trade to get that next issue, because they've been reading all along. They're not even going to invest in the trade. And it made me think, you're right. The people that have been reading it forever, they don't want to have to stop for several months so I can do the trade, fulfill the trade, and get it out. So I thought I would kind of do the best of both worlds. Here's issue 7 for the longtime readers. You just want to keep going in the story, and they don't have to pause their story, because I mean, issue 7 is done. There's no reason to make people wait when it's something that's already complete and ready to go out into the world. So that way, the new readers, those who have never found anything, they can get the trade. And if they like it, they can go back in the next campaign, catch up with issue 7, because there's always stuff you can go back in the add-ons and pull things in. But they just want to give that first shot with the trade and see what they think of it. And it's also something that I put together thinking of cons, because every con I do, inevitably, the first question someone asks you at your table is, oh, do you have a trade? And you have your floppies, but there are people who don't buy individual issues. They will wait 3 years. They don't care to get a trade in their hands. So I figure this, even if it doesn't immediately pay off with the Kickstarter, the shows that I work throughout the year, that's when it's going to make a difference. When they have that trade on the table, maybe they want to buy a graded book, maybe they want to buy something else, but they're gonna go straight to that trade. So it's kind of giving both pieces. You have your people that can get just the trade, your people that just want to keep reading it. They don't want to waste their time going back. And I even told a couple that came up to my table, I'm putting some extra bonus content in the trade, but you've been buying since issue 1. I'm happy to send you the digital of the trade so you can read those 6 extra pages.
Yeah, because this is where it gets tricky in a lot of ways, I feel, is that obviously financing anything is difficult. Whether you're starting a business, a traditional business, comic book making is a business, whether people want to admit it or not. This is a business, and it needs to be treated as such. What I'm doing right here is a business. There's no question about that, and it's run like one. Whether you make money or not, that's not the point of where I'm going with this. But what you made was a very interesting business decision, and it's tricky because you're not dealing with a traditional customer. Somebody comes into a store and they're buying something. That's kind of a traditional position. In comics, you're not dealing with the same customer, because your customer has to like a very niche product, and especially on Kickstarter, where it's very much interactive between a creator. It's very personalized. There's bonus things and other things. So what is even that like to figure out even the balance? Because you also have to deal with the fact that, look, people sometimes don't go on Kickstarter. And I hate to say this, and it's going to sound messed up when I say it, but there's a lot of projects on Kickstarter, and there's no way that everybody who likes your book is going to see your book on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
When you go to a con, though, somebody's walking past, like, oh, what's the Immortal error? That looks interesting. And, because that's the other thing too, that sometimes people don't understand, I feel, in comics, is that the way you might make your money is not on Kickstarter. Kickstarter might lower your costs by 90%. Or it might lower your cost by 50%, but you'll make your money at a con in your floppies or your trade paperbacks or a graded book or a poster or a t-shirt or something else. I don't know exactly what other merch is out there, but what is that like? Because that's also what I feel a trade does more effectively than a floppy.
Yeah, I think so. I think with the trade, there's not going to be immediate payback because the cost of printing a trade is pretty high. So it will probably take the year to recuperate that, but it should strengthen the table at the con because now they see, okay, there's a trade. It's two things. It's something that some people only want their bookshelf full of trades. And then it also brings in the legitimacy of the book. They see that I'm not just going to release one issue, say, oh, wow, that was harder than I thought and disappear. They can see that if I made it all the way to a trade, it's something they can trust, that if they enjoy it, I'm not just going to disappear on them. And I think for the first 2 or 3 issues, you get that skepticism at your table. It's like, yeah, when's the next one coming? Because of course they're on the Marvel's timetable. They want their books every month. And I said, I can't give you a book every month, but I can give you 3 or 4 a year. And, that means new trades every 2 years. And it's not the fastest schedule. And of course, I'd love to do it. I mean, I have the stuff written. If I could afford it, we'd have everything up to issue 12 ready to go right now. But we have to work on a timetable of the Kickstarters are kind of there. They bring in new readers that you can't get at a con table, because at a con, I'm limited to the space I'm in. So if I'm in California, I'm hitting California people. And if I do 2 cons back to back, you see the same people there. And they're like, what's next? I already bought all your stuff last con. I need something more. So that's where Kickstarter is good, because the geography it hits is global. It's not just California, or if I even do a travel con, you still only have the people from that region coming to you. So Kickstarter brings you out where I have buyers I have Singapore, Belgium, Germany, all of these countries buying that I'm not going to encounter them at a table. So that's a way to sell to a bigger market. And I think that's what Kickstarter brings, because hopefully they read the book, they tell a friend, and word of mouth means now you got 4 or 5 readers from Switzerland or Belgium. And, they tell a friend who tells a friend, and hopefully you can get a little market out there. And that's something you can't do just doing table to table at cons.
Yeah, I also think that cons are tricky. I was listening to somebody and he said you should be selling to the masses, not the classes.
Yeah.
And what he was referring to is the idea that anytime you can go and be in a global platform versus being a localized platform. And look, there's nothing wrong with cons, but there's a reason why I sell on eBay comics. I sell globally. I have no desire to go to a con as a comic seller at the moment, because why do I want to be local when I can be in every country in the world from my kitchen table? And it gives me the ability to actually be more competitive in so many ways. And it's not as complicated as people think it is. It's not that hard to send a book to Singapore or Canada. It's not that hard to send a book to Australia. My concern is when I send that stuff over, it's making sure it's packed correctly. But beyond actual logistics, the shipping labels aren't that hard. It's not even that expensive, all things considering. If somebody really wants something, it's not that bad. But again, I think that that's something that I made this argument during COVID. I made this argument saying that, I think it's good. And I think that, people have to get out of, the con system. It should be an addition, but I don't think that it should be the focus. I think this space right here, what we're doing right now, should be the focus for every creator. I really do, because you can reach so many more people with such less cost. That it's a no-brainer, in my opinion.
And I think our first interview was actually during COVID. So cons were not even a factor at that point. They weren't even something that existed. So we were interviewing and talking about how do we create a global market when there's no con scene in existence. Because I could travel all around the world to cons, but you still are just limited to the people in that room. And it was how to move globally, because at that point, when we were doing the interview, we didn't know when cons were even coming back. Because I think we did our first one right around when issue 7 came out, or issue 2, pardon. And who knew? I mean, it was pure uncertainty on the horizon. So it was, how do we get out there? Because the normal way, the way that you traditionally would do it, get your book, put it on the table and sell it, it was gone. So we had to think of new ways. And now that cons are back, I enjoy having both, but I think having to learn how to sell to that global market in a different way, it helped me grow as a creator. And it's only beneficial to get more people.
I've been very upfront about this in a lot of different segments over the last 3 years. Best thing happened to me is me going live, where I went from doing 40 interviews to doing 150 on average, which is a big jump. It's almost a 4x. It's also the speed, it's the content, it's the sharing, it's, producing more content, getting more connections. And I think that, obviously this year I'm probably gonna do a little bit less, but I think a lot of creators, now that cons are back, I think that they forgot that, wait a second, you could be on a Tuesday, going to a con on Friday and do an interview and get another media point in there. And, I think that a bunch of creators have forgotten that you can do both and that you probably should do both. And that I think that you need to have a bigger digital footprint regardless. Even if you're going to a con every other weekend, you need to have a bigger digital footprint, because once this obviously is up on YouTube, it becomes passive. And a passive sale, in my view, is worth more than an active sale or active sales. Because if this thing gets you 6 backers every single year, you only had to do the interview once to get those 6 backers. I've done interviews for my eBay store that get me clients 2 or 3 or 4 every year from 3 years ago. I only did it once.
So, and I think that's the key is, if they come and enjoy the book, now you've got them. Now they're your readers, and they're here for the long haul. And you got to get them in all the different ways you can. And it's beautiful because, like you say, the interviews live on the internet, and hopefully someone hears about it and they think this is something I want to check out. And now they're your reader, and you didn't have to pitch them at the con, because cons, if you're doing it right, you're busting your ass. You don't sit down. You're constantly, you're a used car salesman in a lot full of Ferraris. How are you going to sell your book? So you're just trying to work and work and work. And by the time it's done, you sound about like I do right now. You got no voice left and you're exhausted. And that's just day one. Where this interview, when it's done, you don't have that same level of exhaustion that you just work for 10 hours. And yet it still can bring in the same amount of new readers.
It's also the idea, and I'm going to be speaking about this a lot more, that, it lives on forever, but it's also that you have as much time as you need. And that's the other thing too, when you're doing an hour-long interview, somebody can get a sense of who you are. Somebody can get a sense of what you believe in. I did a media spot that's probably going to drop tomorrow, and it was about 45 minutes. And in those 45 minutes, you're going to get a real sense of who I am. So that if I'm selling you a class, I'm like, oh, I now understand that Andrew is A, B, C, and D. And I think that's a big difference, because let's be realistic here. I don't know how many campaigns you back, but I'm very selective. And I have, a legitimacy test. I have, are you a good person test? Are you a horrible person test? Because at this stage, nothing against anybody's book, but I can go on Kickstarter and find 50 great books that are all the same, have all the same stretch goals, have all the same art. I'm going to enjoy all 50 of those stories. I can only pick up one of them. So now I need to say to myself, okay, who is this person? How have they interacted with somebody? Do they have enemies? Have they offended one of my friends in comments? Do they pay their artist? And all that stuff matters. And I think that with the interviews I do, you can get a sense of something, especially with video and audio and questions. I can get a sense if somebody is hiding something, not hiding something, if they're a good person, bad person. And in an hour, I feel it. So, and I think other people can too. And I think it's beyond just that. I've backed people who've had really bad books, but they seemed nice and genuine, and they seemed like good people, that their book wasn't there, but they seemed like a good person and the book was okay. Not to put them down, but they seem like a decent person. But then I bet people who I've actually walked away from people who have great books, but you don't seem like a great person. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to, continue your position. And that's what it is for me, at least.
Yeah.
So, and this is what interviews, in my opinion, really help to decipher for me is not your quality of your book, but what type of person you are. Because it's a big thing for me, but I digress. That's a whole different thing, and I get flack for that because people say you can't separate the artist and the writer from the book, and I'm like, but I don't think at this point, especially on the indies, I think they're one and the same in a lot of ways. But I digress. I do want to go further into this though, because it is interesting because you on this offer 2 versions of the book. And so, which I actually think is super, super smart because I think that's the right play. One of them is, I guess, the standard edition. And then I think the other is a hardcover, I want to say.
Yeah, we're doing a hardcover that'll be expanded with bonus content and things like that. I think of it like the people who buy those special edition Blu-rays and they want all the bells and whistles. And then there's those people like, I don't care about any of that. Just give me the story. I just want to read it. That's all I care about. So I kind of want to cater to both of them because I'm the kind of person I love to get the Blu-rays and just dig into all the behind the scenes stuff. But I know people that never waste their time with it. So I wanted to give 2 versions for the, both kinds of readers. Some people want to see every single cover we've done, script to final comparisons and things like that. So my objective is to meet both ends of the market, but keeping the hardcover at a very small print count so that it has that collectability, because in the end, the people that buy your comic books, they're still collectors. And that's one thing that drives me crazy about cons and Kickstarters. When you go up to an indie and they don't bother giving you a bag and board, they don't ship it safely, it comes to you bent because they just throw it in an envelope, and they have to treat their book like maybe they're sending me a Ninja Turtles #1. That was an indie book, and I would have hoped they would have had a higher regard for their own material, to not just throw it in a cheap envelope to save you some postage and, let the book arrive.
Drives me crazy. It drives me crazy too. And you know what it is? It drives a lot of people crazy. And obviously this is like my wheelhouse where I buy and sell books on eBay.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that, so obviously I'm a comic book investor and this is one of my things and I love talking about this. But one of the things that I think people have to realize is that investors and collectors are the exact same thing up to the exit point. It runs parallel. So everything, if you're a true collector, you need the same rules minus the exit lesson in investing. That's it. It's legitimately the same thing. And so I hate when people put it into like a mailer and I'm like, you shipped your book for $4, but it came okay. But I would have rather paid an extra like $6 so that it arrived perfect in a Gemini. And so it's like Zenoscope, when they send their books in a Gemini. Because when I'm spending $23 or I'm spending $50, you're damn right you're going to send that thing in a Gemini. And I pay $11 when Zenoscope sends me something, and I charge $11 on eBay. Because guess what? It arrives in a Gemini, in bubble wrap in a Gemini, and the book arrives immaculate. It drives me crazy. And I think that a lot of people don't get it. And then when you have a hardcover book, especially in low quantities, it's exclusive. It's a collector's item. People want to put that on their shelf. They might not necessarily be viewing it to sell it, but they want to display it on their shelf so that when somebody comes over, they look at their bookshelf and they're like, this is mine.
Yeah.
And they're proud to have it on their bookshelf. I don't know if that makes any sense. It sounds weird when I say it that way, but they feel pride. I mean, I have books on my bookshelf that I feel very, happy and it's a status quo symbol for me. So like I have like the Avatar: The Last Airbender, nice hardcover book. And when people see that, to me, it makes me proud that I have those books.
Yeah.
Or my curse word, or I'm getting Justin Hampton's book. probably next February, which is a poster book. It's a beautiful book. I feel pride when I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you love to look at your bookshelf. That's something that people enjoy. And I think that's a difference between a trade and a single issue is the trades, they go into the long box. And if it's someone like me, it's the sea of long boxes in the garage. Not that I don't go back and pull from them, but when it's a trade, it goes on the bookshelf. And those are what you immediately grab. I don't have to sift through 7 boxes to find that one book I'm looking for. You look in there, it is okay under the eyes, and you pull it right out. So I think, yeah, there is that pride because it's not just going to be stuffed in the long box and forgotten. It's up there and it's permanent. It feels, like something that they could reach for at any time.
Yeah, I also think that, what is people put things next to each other and you have a long series. And that's the other thing too that I think is a little bit different about yours in particular is that this is the first of many trades or the
Yeah.
first of many hardcover books or potentially, there's going to be an omnibus at some point. I mean, I just know it. Well, whether you want to admit it or not, you could take the 5th and we won't press any further. I promise. But I might cross-examine you and that could be a fun thing. Anyway, that's such a bad joke. It was like candy for me to take that joke. But anyway, it's one of those things where I think people just want to display it. But
Yeah.
I digress. And I think it's smart because I like exclusivity. I think exclusivity is king. I'm a big proponent of that. Anything that is exclusive, I'm a big proponent of. And I think it has value. And I think that's what people don't understand also is that it's a club. If you only print 50 of these books, you're one of 50 who has it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean and that, what is somebody who wants it and they're number 51. Well, they don't have it. There you go.
When it's gone, it's gone. I always make sure that I don't reprint my low print ones. I call them short prints. It's a baseball card term, but it kind of sticks. And I did them at 25. And I did my last issue, I did a foil cover. And it is such a desirable cover. People saw it in the flesh and they were like, oh my gosh, I really want to get that. They all sold out through the Kickstarter. So I said, they are gone. I did 25 and that's that. The run is sold out and I won't be doing reprints. Like you can buy a poster of that image if you want it. I got a shirt of that image, but the book itself, you have to reward those people that said, I want it and they grabbed it up. And before the Kickstarter was over, every one of the quantities, whether it was on the add-ons or a couple different bundle ones, they were all down to 0. So that was the first book that I've put out that sold out through the Kickstarter where it never actually even made it to my table at cons.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm going to be doing, not a 25 limited print run, but I might do a 100 limited print run. And I have a slightly different philosophy where I'm probably going to vault 10. But 90 of them, when I do a short run, it's just once those 90 sell. And then the vault 10 is the whole point of that is obviously I'm going to save like 2 for myself. And then other 8, I'm going to reward and give people who have been with me on my book that eventually when I write it, have been with me for 3-4 years, the opportunity to buy it if they missed it at what it was going for the first time. But, that's the reward loyalty customers. So somebody who's backed like 6 campaigns, I might open up the vault is the concept. But the only reason why you'd want to do that is that that's just another way how to reward people. Yeah. But again, we're only offering 8 of them up. So that doesn't really impact the value, I feel.
No, not at all.
But you're not opening it up to the public, which is
and I always hold 5 back for CGC. So I hold 5 back that get graded. I always keep the lowest grade for myself because for me, it's just owning it. I don't need the 9.8. I mean, with the foil one in particular, it only got 198. And I have one particular customer. He's like, that one's mine. I want that one and only that one. And then there's always a few that can be on the table, but they'll be the graded ones. So it's, if you want it, there's always a chance. I never sell all 25. I put up 20 and then 5 go on to CGC.
Yeah, and I think it's smart. I mean, obviously, you do the grading stuff. Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my first book, and my first book's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting, all right. People are either gonna think I'm a genius or they're gonna hate me, which will be no different than January. It'll be no different than January, everybody. That's all I'm gonna say. But anyhow, let's even dive into that too, because I think that's smart too. Because let's be realistic, people like graded books. They
Yeah.
view them as a commodity. When you get a book graded, it becomes a commodity. It becomes a tradable asset. It also preserves it. It also is signed, because I think you sign all of them.
Yeah.
So I think they're all yellow labeled.
They are.
And so that's nice too. And then obviously it protects the book. So, and I think on this campaign, you have a bunch of books up that are either add-on grades or something of that people can pick up
Yeah.
as
I
well.
think at this point for this campaign, you can buy all of the regular covers of 1 through 6, and some of those are down to 1 or 2 copies left of my CGC one. So you can get a first print of number 1, but I'm not going to devalue it. I'm put it at a high price because I know that I sent in 15 to grade and only 2 of them pulled 9.8s. And you can go in, people like to go into the CGC and you can read exactly how many were sent in, how many grades were received, and you can see a 9.8 was really extremely rare. So I don't put a low price tag on it. I might be an indie, but I value my stuff enough to know that you're not going to get a 9.8 for $50 for me, which is what people go, well, yeah, well, I could go get that Spider-Man over there for $50. I'm like, feel free. I'm not stopping you, because in the end, I believe in my material. And one day I believe that they can regret not grabbing it from my table.
Yeah. This is something that I think that people in indie sometimes understand, and sometimes they don't. I think fans sometimes understand, sometimes they don't. It's something that I'm learning how to do this, where there are people who are asking me for interviews right now, and I'm like, look, you know what it is? I mean, I value my show, I value my brand a certain way. It's even when, I shoot out to sponsors, I value my brand at a certain price. And I value it based on past sponsorships, what I have coming down the pike, the type of guest I have on, and also the longevity. And I'm not going to go and devalue what I think I'm worth because you don't like that I only have 300 Instagram followers. Because
Yeah.
and if you're a company and that's how you want to perceive, you can do whatever you want, but you're also going to hear back from me and say, look, if you don't find value in me, somebody else will,
Yeah.
or I will make it so that you regret it 20 years down the road, and then you'll be hitting me up, and then you know what is, and that's just the way I see it. And I would rather not go and do an ad for $3. I'd rather have no ad than do it for below what my rate is, and then
Yeah.
what I return to capital. And my last sponsor, I returned a decent amount of money to them, way beyond what should have been done. And so I'm not going to go and devalue myself, knowing what my performance brings. And
Yeah.
I think it's crucial. I think sometimes it can get out of hand, and but even still, I think it's very important that people know what they're worth and also understand, saying, look, I can wait. I can wait
Yep.
all day for the right sponsor. I really can.
And for me, if I figure the worst case scenario, let's say I never sell that 9.8 at the price I'm asking. Well, worst case scenario is I keep it and it's a piece of my own collection. So I don't feel that there's a situation to lose because I have to put it at a price that I'm comfortable letting it go with, because my instincts say, keep that. You have the highest graded one. Who wants to get rid of that? So I have to put a price tag that will satisfy me if it does move off the table. Because
And
if it
also,
doesn't, then I own it still and it's always mine.
if you're asking like 400 and somebody offers you 380 for it, I mean, there's room to negotiate if somebody is actually being reasonable, I would
Oh,
imagine.
there's always wiggle room. And some people say, well, what if I buy 1, 2, and 3? Will you cut me a deal? And it's absolutely. There's always wiggle room if you're
Different if somebody
investing in
offers you 100.
something. Yeah.
In
I mean,
which that there's a concept where, so I'm on eBay, right? I'm selling a book for $200 right now. I'll take a certain price for it, right? If somebody
Yeah.
offered me 50 for it, I would say, I appreciate the offer, but no, thank you. I know what this book is worth. Somebody offers
Yeah.
me 160 for it, we got a deal.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
then there's always a negotiable price.
You're in the neighborhood. Once
Mhm.
you're in the neighborhood, it's a little bit different than if you're not in the neighborhood. Or if
Yeah.
somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to pick up the trade in this. Would you do the whole deal for 400?" And you're asking for the CGC book $400. You know what is? You might take that deal because it's perfect. But
Yeah.
again,
I mean, I'll if someone emailed me really wanting one of the things, I would put a bundle together for them. Like, okay, you tell me what you want. I'll put a
mhm,
bundle together. That way we can, because if you do the add-ons individually, you got to pay for shipping for each item. So I'd be happy to throw a bundle like, okay, they want 1, 2, and 3. Well, that's going to end up costing them another $20 in
I
postage.
think that's the
But
other
if
thing.
we put them all together, it can work. It's just a matter of if they contact me, I can do it. And I've had a few people do that saying, okay, I want this, and this. What can we do? And I said, okay, let me put them all in a bundle. I'll drop off some price, and then it will also be one combined shipping cost.
That's the thing too that's crucial. Where this is one of the things I do on eBay that I think also people have to understand on Kickstarter is that somebody will spend more money if their shipping doesn't go up.
Yeah.
And so I love to give massive shipping discounts. So if somebody's buying like 4 books, the shipping doesn't go up in my
Yeah.
eBay. And so all of a sudden, if they were to buy those things individually, that's an extra $44. Rather than having to spend that extra $44, maybe they'll spend another $100. And the way they view it is that they've only spent like $66 more
Yeah.
because they now have saved money on the shipping, and so now they understand saying, hey, look, I'm not spending an extra $40 on shipping, and
Yeah.
so I'm willing to pay a little bit more because I'm saving a lot of money in the long run. So
Yeah.
super interesting in that regard, but a lot of fun stuff. And basically, if you want that book, guys, if you want a CGC book of #1, this is how you get it. Is all I'm gonna say. But yeah, so even to ask a question before I go into rewards, and I think you're perfect, and this is an impetus for something else that might be happening in a few weeks. I'm starting a new show called The Question, and the first episode is do we as comic fans deserve an ending to stories, and in particular indie comic stories? And so I figured I would let you answer that question. And I'm curious your opinion because you're writing a big series. And
Yeah.
so before we get you and me both canceled on this question, I figured you're the perfect person to ask.
I mean, I think if you're invested in a series for multiple years, because I mean, an indie series of any scale is going to take years to get through. People deserve an ending. They deserve finality so that they can know, okay, it was a story from beginning, middle to end, and it wasn't just kind of left you hanging. So I feel like, let's say life intervenes and blocks me from releasing the book, I would release it as a novel. I want to give the fans their ending because those who have been reading it, they deserve to know what happens, the fate of all the different characters, and to leave them hanging. Because I mean, financially, I can see why people do a few books and disappear because yes, it's a financial
Oh, it's brutal.
commitment, and
Brutal.
it just keeps going up because you get your printer going, oh, sorry, paper costs just went up, so now the books you were selling at $5 you're going to pay $3 a book for, and your profits going down. So there's a lot of factors that make it difficult, but in my eyes, I owe my readers an ending. I owe them the full story. I hope, beyond hope, that it's in the form of the comic book they're reading right now. But if something were to happen and I got outpriced in the market, then I take all my notes and I mold them into a novel to give people, the full story. Because one way or another, the story will be told.
Yeah, it's tricky because I didn't say a good ending, I didn't say a bad ending, I didn't say a mediocre ending. I said an ending
Yeah,
because it's something that happens in television where we
all the
don't get an
time.
ending all the time, and it's very upsetting, and people get upset about it. It happens with a variety of other things where you don't get an ending. Video game series, you don't get an ending to something because, well, things are expensive to produce.
Yeah.
And so it's a very tricky thing. And this is why it's going to be such an interesting episode, because I have a bunch of people. I have 3 people coming on, and one of them is writing a long series. One of them is a super fan. And then the third person just asked to be on, and she just said, I want to be a fly on the wall. And it's just going to be the 4 of us talking about this, because it really is a complicated question.
Yeah.
Because I hate to use the word deserve, because technically you don't deserve anything. But at the same time, if I've been back in your book for 5 years,
Yeah.
and I've been spending, $15 every single Kickstarter, I just pumped a lot of money into your book over the course of 5 years. I don't know if deserved is the right word. Entitled, respecting your fan could be substituted there, but it's a very interesting question, because 6 issues is not pumping a lot of money in. 25 issues is.
Yeah. Especially if they've been there since number 1. And I think, I mean, like you say, deserving, maybe not the right word, but I feel as an author, I feel obligated to bring them to a conclusion of some sort. Whether they like it or not, that's for them to decide. But I want to give them that conclusion. I mean, you think of Game of Thrones, we saw the end of it on TV. Will we ever see the end of it in the books? Because, I mean, I think ending it on TV first probably broke his heart, because the media, well, I mean, the internet trolls, and they may be a small group, but they're a loud group, and they just annihilated that poor guy. And now does he think, do I want to invest all this time and effort to finish a series that they already hate the ending of? So for me, I feel like I'll give them the ending. You hope that it's an enjoyable ending, but in the end, that's for them to decide. And if anything picks up momentum, the internet hate will come your way. If you're small like me, you don't really bring the internet hate, because there's not enough people who know about it. And there's people who make it a commitment to their life to just bring people down. So if the book ever did gain momentum, I'm sure I'd get those haters right in the mix of things.
Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. If I have internet haters, it's not that hard for you to have internet haters. And I don't even have a book. It's amazing. I don't have a book and I have haters. Oh my God, January, guys. Oh man, I have like 4 or 5 haters in January, and I feel both honored and insulted that I don't have more. The fact that I got 5 and I haven't even produced a book yet, and like my show is an okay show. It's like a small show. A definition. I have 5 haters. Oh, it's fantastic. I guess I should take it as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
So when you get a hater, you should just take it as a badge of honor. when you have somebody saying, "Oh, issue 7 was horrible. How could you do that?" and just like get all over you, should be like, "I made it. I just made it. I'm good. I don't need to do anything else now."
Yeah, I mean, I hope you don't get it, because for me, I guess it wouldn't roll off as easily, but I've been beat up by different creators, and I've definitely taken the lumps, and you have to grow from them. And if it's just an internet hater, there's nothing to really grow from. It's like, all right, that means I'm important enough, or I exist enough in that world to be hated by those trolls who hate everything. If you look at their profile and it's like, well, they've never actually liked anything, of course they weren't going to like me.
Yeah, I know why people hated what I did in my Kickstarter. Because people, 3 things. They don't want to see somebody succeed. They either don't want to pay for media because they're feeling like they're getting shellacked as it is, and they're dying out there in their campaigns, and that they're like, fuck, another bill.
Yeah.
And that they don't understand that this is work, and that this is a permanent ad, and that, what it is, it's pay to play, and it's coming. It's coming. I mean, you're already doing it at a con. So you know what it is. I mean, I have a whole thing about that too, but it's pretty obvious how I feel, and a bunch of other people feel this way, and it's becoming more and more vocal. Or what it is, people say, "Can I come on the show?" And I say, "Hey, I got a Kickstarter running," and then the second I said that, they got upset. And so it's usually that, and typically the people who have issues with it have something else going on in their life, and they just want to attack because they see an easy target and they just think that they can attack. And what they don't understand is that other people watch, and how you conduct yourself is definitely, it's all going to come back, and you never know what's going to happen. It's a small community, and you should be very careful in comics who you attack, because it is a small community. Pop culture is a small community, and people move around. And you know what it is? If you attack me today, 3 years from now, I could have the hottest show out there, and it's like, oops. It could be the same. It could go the opposite way too. You attack you, and in 4 years from now, you could have the hottest comic out there, and it's like, oh well, you attacked him, and maybe it wasn't such a good idea, because you might not want to be so helpful after you've been attacked. Because I have a list, and I have no problem admitting that. I have a list of people who were nice to me and people who weren't. You're on my show, and I asked you because you actually supported the campaign once, and you've been on my show multiple times because of that. Whatever that means is the point of it. So I have a bunch of people who supported the show have been on this show multiple times since then, beyond what they supported.
Yeah.
Because I pay attention to who helps me and who was supportive and who's, a team player, for lack of a better word. But I digress. But I don't take the haters for I look at what they're worth and all that stuff. But I take it as a badge of honor, because if somebody is attacking me, there must be a reason why.
Yeah.
There must be something that they want that I've done that they haven't done yet. That's how I view it. Because nobody attacks anybody for no reason.
Yeah.
Unless you invade Russia, but that's a different discussion for a different day. You just don't do it in the winter. That's all I'm going to say. Now, that's a history joke for you. But anyway, let's get into rewards. So obviously there's a bunch of rewards. There's the digital of issue 7. There's the digital copy of the graphic novel. There's both issue 7 and the graphic novel digitally. There's the deluxe edition digitally. Then there's the physical of issue 7. And I got posters, so I don't know exactly what order these are in. That's the trade right there.
That's for the soft cover trade right there.
This is for the hardcover trade. And so obviously this is the deluxe edition.
Yes.
I think both these covers new, or
they're both new. Yeah, they were both done just for the trade.
I asked because I forget sometimes, and then we got this right here, which is just my favorite scene from issue 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a beautiful page.
I mean, it's a metal card. I'm telling you, this is a metal card for you. But yeah, then there's this, which is also, I think, from what happened, and then we get into this stuff, which is just the city. But then we get into this, which I think is this issue 7. I want to say
that's issue 7. That's the standard cover.
And then we get into this one, which I believe is the short run.
That is, yes.
And then 25 of them, right?
25.
Is this one sold out yet or no?
It's not yet. I think it's about 10 have sold, but I have a lot of people who normally buy the short, and they'll probably wait until the end. That seems to be the way they do it.
And then there's this one.
That'll be the foil one, the second foil. Now, I'll probably go back and revisit 1 through 6 in foil because people have asked. This one, I think it's sold about 10 as well. So they're moving, but slow and steady with all of them.
And then there's this, which is, I think, the first 6.
Yeah, we still have issues of all of those. So if you want to do a catch-up bundle, they're a stretch goal that you can get, and you can get 1 through 6 in that.
Mm-hmm. And then there's this, which I think is some short runs.
Those are the last short runs I have. So one of them is the first one is actually a foil that was done for the Comic Cult, which is a local comic shop up in the high desert. And then there's a few issue 5 ones, and then the issue 6, but I think both of those are under 5 left. And then the last one was the LA Comic-Con cover and that had a higher print run. So that one is about, I think there's about 60 left out of the 150 that I did. And there's actually going to be an issue 2 LA Comic-Con cover this year. So there'll be kind of companion pieces, which will, I'm guessing when I go to LA Comic-Con, people will try to buy up both of them.
And so that's in this one too. And then obviously, if you get it off the Kickstarter, this LA Comic Con, yours will be off the table and it will just be last. So obviously, if you pick it up, don't freak out that it's going to be on the table at LA Comic Con. Even if you are going to LA Comic Con and you don't want to risk it, that's something to keep in mind as well. And then these are some posters, I believe.
Yeah, those are all the posters that are going to be offered for this campaign. Just doing, I'm kind of sticking because before I did poster all of my different posters, and it got really overwhelming in the rewards time when people had to select which one. So I'm sticking with the 7 ones, and then I'll put a little note in there. Like if you want issue 1's cover, I still have every issue and every short print as a poster, but I think it overwhelmed the people because they said, I think I want the one on the right in the middle on row 2. And I figure I'm just going to do it from the main covers on this one. And then if you want an older cover, you can just request it to make it easier than trying to figure out which one is which. Because if the rewards had pictures, it would make everyone's life a lot easier because you could just pick the picture of the one you want and go from there. But since it's not, I'm just sticking with the 2 things that are in this active campaign.
Yeah, and if somebody wants something and it's not there, they'll just hit you up. And if you have it, you're more than happy to, give it to them. And then obviously there's this too, which I think some of this has been stretch goals, but now you could pick up a whole pin set.
Yeah, they were all stretch goals, but now at this point, if you're just jumping on and you want to get the pin set, it's an add-on you can get.
And then there, I know there is a pin stretch goal, I think.
Yeah,
right.
That's our 5,000 goal, and it'll start. We did the 5 heroes. Now we're going to start doing villains. So we'll have the first one will be the gang member from issue 1 and issues 5 and 6. The second one will be one of the aged soldiers. The third one will be Tristessa. And then we'll have Dr. Nix and Koa, who's the villain who gets introduced in issue 5 and 6. He'll be the last pin. So just like I did the characters one at a time as stretch goals, I'm going to do the villains the same way, where you can unlock one. I mean, if the campaign goes higher, I'll add more stretch goals, but I stopped it at 5,000. And at that point, you'll get the next pin in the sequence. And it's ordered one way or the other. So let's say we don't hit 5,000, it'll just be an add-on on the next campaign.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of stuff. And obviously there's magnets. I think there's like a sticker, and there's some other fun stretch goals. And obviously once you get funded, then stretch goals start happening. And, obviously for those who don't know, and I'm just going to remind everybody that, if you just got the graphic novel, I think all the stretch goals are included and you're good to go and you don't have to do anything about that. So that's the fun thing about Kickstarter is that, some people have really good stretch goals and they're fun, and it's, free swag, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. And I always like that. I know some people, there's a debate on if stretch goals are even worth it. Do people value the stretch goals, or is it something they just toss aside?
No, we cannot talk about Mike Tenner on this show. We refuse. Him and his post about it. That I'm joking. I like Mike. Mike's great. I just that's another episode on that show. That's going to be a fascinating debate, because I think that it's a super interesting discussion. I really do, because I'll be very honest, and let me ask you this. What stretch goals do you like? Do you like more digital, or do you like more physical? As a consumer, not as a creator, but as a consumer of Kickstarters.
I think as a consumer, I prefer the physical. I love stickers. I plaster them all over my refrigerator in my classroom. My travel totes that I take to different cons with me are loaded up with stickers as well. If my neighbor happens to be an artist selling a sticker, I always buy one from them and stick it on my tote. And then any of these stretch goal stickers are on there too. So it's just, all of my things are just loaded up with stickers. So I love getting a good sticker or a good magnet. So I'm one that likes the physical ones. And when What I really love is when there's a campaign that makes a crazy amount of money and your stretch goal packet is this thick. It's like, okay, they're giving back. Like they may have made a lot, but they're giving back to the fans with keychains
So
and stickers and you name it.
yeah,
And I love getting that stacked bundle.
I'm not a sticker guy. I don't have a problem with stickers, but what I like is I like trading cards, right?
Okay.
I like it because I'm a card collector and I buy and sell trading cards. I love baseball cards. I love all weird cards, you know, and I may or may not be doing a card set at some point or something that's going to be super interesting. That's close to my heart. That has nothing to do with comics. It'll be a fun one though. But I like metal cards. I like
Yeah.
magnets because I use magnets, right?
Mhm.
Keychains are fun. You know, a bottle opener is cool, right?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Because for me at this point, digital bundle packs, most people have a digital bundle. I've read everybody's comic. In
Yeah.
that.
You've seen them on. I mean, I
So,
like the digital bundles. What's nice about the digital bundles is if you have someone who only backs digital, at least they're getting something as well. So for the people who are buying the physical, they get the bundle of stuff. But if you only bought digital, you're not excluded from a cool stretch goal.
no, I agree completely with that too. I like expanded stories, but like my whole thing is that you know Travis Gibb, right?
Yeah.
So like if you have Travis Gibb's book in your digital bundle, I've read everything from Travis,
Yeah.
both from interviewing him and backing 4 other campaigns. I have everything Travis has done. So that doesn't mean anything to me. Somebody who hasn't read Travis's stuff might mean something. You might get introduced to
Yeah.
Travis, but if that's your big stretch goal or you have every 50 backers, a new digital comic comes in, I'm like, but I've backed and I've read all these people because I've interviewed all of them and they all send me a digital package to read.
Yeah.
So like, and even if that wasn't the case and I was backing the answer 4 or 5 of a particular group, it's like, you're not adding anything. Now, if Travis wrote something that was not on Kickstarter yet and was an 8-page preview, that's different because that's something that now has value. And that's my whole thing about, digital stretch goals and why they're not used. That doesn't move the needle for me. What moves the needle is a mini print, is a metal card, is a bottle opener, is a sticker, because at least now there's something physical going on with that. And that's what moves the needle for me, or an autograph card, something of that nature moves the needle. Everything else doesn't really move the needle, but I digress. Again, this is another discussion. If you want in on that discussion, I'll happily have you on that one with Mike, because I think it'll be funny with Mike Tiener, and because I saw that post and I'm like, we're gonna have this conversation. And again, the whole point of that show, for those who are watching, is to actually have an open, honest discussion about things. I digress because I do want to talk about Kickstarter because obviously you're pretty close to funding.
Yeah.
And we were speaking about before we went live that Kickstarter has been weird lately with a lot of people, where people are funding or they're getting pretty close to funding, but then they're not going over the top. There was somebody, I'm not going to mention who it was. He wound up with, I think, like 10 more backers in his last campaign, but he only wound up with $100 more. And, it was crystal clear to me when I saw that, and he's not the only one, that people are funding, but they're not overfunding. They're not funding at levels that I feel that they were funding at 6 months to a year ago. And so what is that like? Because a little trade secret, and again, stop me from revealing too much. People set their goals sometimes lower than what they need because they want to get funded and then more people jump on because they know they're going to get it. Or they want to play with the algorithm and they hope they get further up in it, and then they overfund, or they put it at a certain price point, but they really need $6,000, but they put their goal at 5,000. And so there might be 5,500, but they're 500 in the hole still. And so what is that like? Because it's some people put their goal at what they don't really need. They need double what their goal is, but they don't want to put that in there because they don't want to fail.
I think if nothing else, you put your goal at something that will take the edge off. I mean, especially with me printing 2 trades, my goal would be astronomical if I wanted to recoup all the printing and all the artist fees for issue 7 and for the trade. So fortunately for the trade, there's no new artist fees besides the covers that I had done and the extra lettering that's getting completed. But for issue 7, that's all new art that I'm trying to recover the artist fees from. And my goal would have been, $10,000 if I wanted to get all of it back. But I look at it as, if it takes the edge off and I'm then buy the trades and I'm able to sell them out at cons and things like that, eventually you get it all back. But if you put your goal too high, people are going to be scared off, because they're going to look like, if I had a 10,000 goal and I'm sitting at 3,000 with 15 days to go, it doesn't look like a campaign that's going to make it. So people would be less likely to click that button, because they're thinking, he's never going to get me this book anyway, because this campaign is bound for failure. So you put it at a goal that you can meet, and people are more likely to actually back you, because they back it because they want that book. They legitimately want to own it. And if they see there's no chance you're going to make it, they'll go to that second better campaign. Because like you said, there's plenty of amazing campaigns to choose from. There's, hundreds upon hundreds of great creators out there all at the same time. And if they see one that they know is already funded, they're going to give it to that instead of the one that looks like a lost cause.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I have my own thoughts on that, because I think what you said is true, and the way I view it now also is that I think that there's just a lot more competition as well, and I think that what it is, a lot more people want. There's 4 good books, and so they have to make choices, or people are backing. And I don't have anybody's data, but obviously what you want as a, I guess, person is that you want returning backers to come back, spend more money, and you want a higher valued backer, if that makes any sense. And what I mean by that, before anybody attacks me, is that if you got a backer and they spend $15 the first time, you want them to come back and spend $18 the next time. And because it's great to have return backers, and if they come back spending the same amount of money, there's nothing wrong with that. But you want them to come back and spend more money, because that means they want more content. Where if they bought one variant, the next time they back you, maybe they buy 2.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you have a higher returning backer, it means they believe in the product in a lot of ways. And I think that's something that may or may not be happening now, where it might be that somebody maybe a year ago was a high returning backer, and now there's your book and somebody else's book, and instead of spending $30 in one place, they're dividing it across 2.
Yeah. I mean, and in the end, I'm happy with anyone who comes back, whether they spend more or less. Some people, it's a rough financial time right now. So some people who might have backed physical the whole way, maybe this time they can only give you a digital, but if they come back, that's the ultimate compliment. You hope that, yeah, maybe you want a little more. And that's why I put together, at the recommendation of another creator, he said, you should have a bundle where you put all of your limiteds together in one place. And I have people that are doing that maybe they would have only bought one of the short print books, but now they'll buy all of them because I bundled them all in one package together. So I think it's good if they come back for more, but at this point with this economy, if they come back in any way, that's a victory.
Yeah. I think that this is impotent. I could tell on my side, eBay is rough right now.
Yeah.
I deal with a lot of Zenith books, and they are soft, for lack of a better word. Those books are soft. Where books
Yeah.
that were selling for $90 are selling for like 60.
Yeah.
And
Everything's taking a drop.
It's taken a nose drop, and things that are rare. So like I have a limited 100 run of a book. That book will sell for 200. The book, the regular like 250 sold for like 110. So the gold version of that will sell for 200, 210 very easily. I know it'll take a while for it to sell, but it will sell for that price because I know what I have. And it's a well sought after book. But something that normally would sell for 60 might only sell for 40 now.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm selling. I might be holding for a while, and I'm okay with that because it'll shift again. But I
Yeah.
think that comics, and I think it's partially because, well, things are a bit rough, and I also think that people are uncertain of what it's going to look like in January and February when this
Yeah.
really hits, because we are not. I mean, we're in a recession, but I don't think we're. I think we're in round one, or I think we're in the top of the first, for lack of a
Yeah.
baseball term. I think it is a long game. And I think that come January, February, March, we're going to be in the bottom of the second. And that's when I think things are going to get rough.
Yeah.
But
And
I'm
that's
very
why you take what you can get, and
pessimistic
still
at it.
don't undersell your stuff. Like you said, you don't sell your book that you know is a $250 book for $100 just to take the quick sale, because eventually when the game's over and we start over with a fresh game, and
Unless you have
those
to.
people will spend the money at one point. You may not get them now, but you will get them, and the book's not going bad in the meantime. It's not like, oh, well, now that book just deteriorated. No, you gotta, if you have a good book, it'll be a good book even when the market comes back to it.
What you hope for is that you hope that you can weather the storm.
Yeah.
And I'm in a position, and I think you are as well, that you can weather the storm. Not every comic creator can weather the storm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can tell you that if you can't weather the storm and you want to produce more, the answer is that find people who can weather the storm. And whether it's a comic shop, whether it's somebody like me who sells, and offer me a sweetheart deal that gets you an infusion of cash. Maybe you only make $1, but offer me a sweet retailer package that'll
Yeah.
make me a good chunk of money in the next 3 years, but give me a big discount.
Yeah.
Even if you're only making 50 cents a book, but you want to produce more content, give me a deal that I normally wouldn't get and sweeten my position, because I guarantee you that if you can't weather the storm, that's the best answer that I can give. But that's up to
Yeah.
everybody to figure out. And again, you have to find people who can do that and want to do that. I'm very selective on retail packages I take for a good reason, because I'm a business. And
Yeah.
but again, that's my whole point. But again, this is like, honestly, I could go on forever about this topic because it's so interesting, and that'll also be a topic. Retail packages, the final frontier. Will be the name of the episode right there. But I don't want to go down that path, and I don't want to get you or me canceled. And obviously you got a lot of stuff going on, but I don't want to keep you all night. I know that you probably have dinner waiting because you're on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So I do want to give you a chance to self-promote yourself before I take you away from your dinner table, politely. So where could people find you, bother you, hit you up, back the campaign, check out what you're doing, check out Finish Line Comics, check out the reel that I made on Instagram. Worked really hard on that, really hard. I thought I picked a good song for you. I really
That's
did.
good. I like that.
I thought I picked a good song. It took me like 20 minutes to figure out a good song. I was
Yeah.
going to do The Undertaker, but then I was like, yeah, that's a little cliche. So I wanted to do something a little bit different. But The Undertaker would have been great. I should have got like the lightning bolt like cutting through it. Oh, it would have been
Yeah.
sick. That's next time, guys. That's next time. I promise. My animation skills will be slightly better. But anyway, all jokes aside, where could people find you, support the campaign, and check out everything you're doing? Because obviously, I want your book to get funded.
Yeah. So right now, all my social media is under Finish Line Comics. So if you want to go there, check out my Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. There's in all three of those places, you'll find a link to the newest campaign. We still have 15 days to go. So we're basically at the halfway point and sitting in a good place for funding. And if you also go to Finish Line Comics, write down a little ways, you can sign up for the mailing list. And that way, if you sign up for the mailing list, you'll be alerted when new campaigns are coming out. You'll also get sneak peeks at new art. My next mailing list that I'm going to be sending out tomorrow will have the first look at the LA Comic-Con cover for #2 that'll be coming in December. So go into the social media, and if you want to check it out, if you look up Immortal Era on Kickstarter, you'll find it. It's the Pieces of Death trade and issue 7. So you can start from 0 and get all the way caught up on what's going on in the series. And yeah, anytime you have a question, if you want to send me a message, I'm quick to reply. I just went back and forth with someone yesterday who's like, okay, what issue are you on now? I've kind of missed a few things. How many are you planning? And he just wanted to kind of ask me a bunch of questions, and I'm always happy to answer. And I'd say, reach out if you want. If you're a creator and you want to reach out, I'm happy to give you whatever tips and advice I have. I may not be an expert. There's plenty of people who know more, but I'm here to help if you need it.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to keep saying it. I've been saying it for almost 3 years, and I'm trying to say it for the next 10. You have to support indie comics, and the way you do that is you have to back them and buy them. And in particular, the best way how to do it and is buy it at a con if you're in person, but also buy it and back Kickstarters. I get it that, if you're in New York, it's going to be tough to go to a Cali con. I get it. But you can back a book on Kickstarter. And when you back a book on Kickstarter, you're helping to get that book get made, because in indie comics in particular, these books do not get made without crowdfunding support. And they definitely take the sting off and the edge off of the production, if not all of it. And you get a book and some cool stuff with it as well. And so, as I stated at the start of the show, you have to support and back what you love. And I'm going to say it right now again, whether you like this show, you like Ed's comic, you like corporate media, you should really put your money where your mouth is, because it does make a difference, and this stuff does get made when you put your money where your mouth is. If you don't believe me, look at the Halo series. Halo is getting a second season because there was enough people who watched it and talked about it and wanted it. So that should give you an idea of that. So there you go. And it's super important. And even going beyond that, further into it, you also need to follow people on social media, because it does make a big difference when you follow people on social media too. And you need to share out their posts, whether that's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever it is. Doesn't cost you anything, and it makes a huge difference. Now, about myself, really quickly, all my social media is down below. It's Pop Anime Comics, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I really appreciate Instagram follows and Twitter follows. I also appreciate when people subscribe on YouTube. I have 469 subscribers. I would really love 470. So if people would like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I do a lot of interviews. I do a lot of fun content. And I think there's an interview for everybody on my YouTube channel. It's free, so feel free to check that out. I also run the Indie Comic Connect group, so you can check that out. Just answer the questions if you have a comic or you're an interviewer. We're happy to have you. And again, it's meant to be that. Just answer the questions. It's free to join. And I do have a comic class coming out soon. If you would like to learn how to invest like a comic book pro, I'm your boy. I'll teach you. It's $40 Udemy. $40. Just add the zero right here or right there. I don't know exactly how it's supposed to look. But yeah, that's everything I got. And then I have Buy Me a Coffee. So if you would like to support this show, and you could go buy me a coffee. If not, no pressure. It's just a nice way how to support this show if you so feel value out of all this. But enough about all that, because I'm going to give you the final word.
All right. So give you the kind of overall pitch of the story one more time. Immortal Era takes place 200 years in the future in a post-apocalyptic world without death. It's a story with lots of layers that's building a quest to restore the natural life cycle and save humanity by killing them. And it's an ongoing series. So if you can get on now, it's greatly appreciated, because we'll be doing this for a while.
Well, I think that is a perfect place to end. And that is a wrap, everybody.